Is it big enough? She asked. The rancher stared at the grave, realized he'd been betrayed Wild West. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the empty plains. Jack Tanner stood alone at the edge of a freshly dug grave. His hat, worn from years of work under the harsh sun, sat low over his eyes, but the weight of his thoughts was too much for the shadow to hide. The grave was small but deep, just enough to bury the man he had once called a brother. The dirt around the grave still had a faint smell of freshly turned earth, and the smell clung to Jack's clothes as he stared at the mound. His brother Daniel had been buried here 2 days ago. The town had gathered for the funeral, offering their condolences, but none of them could offer the one thing Jack needed. Answers. Accident, they all said. It was just an accident, Jack. But Jack didn't believe it, not for a second. Daniel had been with him through thick and thin, ever since their parents passed away when they were just boys. Jack had raised him, taught him how to work the land, how to tend to cattle, and how to stand tall when the world tried to knock you down. Daniel was a good kid. He always had a smile on his face even in the hardest of times. But that smile was gone now, replaced by the cold, lifeless face in the dirt. The ranch had been their family's pride, passed down through the generations, and it was supposed to stay that way. But Jack knew something had changed. There was something about Daniel's death that didn't sit right. He couldn't explain it, but his gut told him that this wasn't just an accident. Jack ran his fingers through his graying beard as he stepped closer to the grave. The wind picked up, sending dust swirling across the barren land. He kicked at the dirt beneath his boots, his mind racing. The more he thought about it, the more he knew something was wrong. Daniel had been too careful, too smart to have died the way they said he had. It didn't add up. He remembered the last time he saw Daniel alive. It had been just a few days before the accident. They were in the barn tending to the horses, and Daniel had seemed distant, like something was bothering him. Jack had asked him about it, but Daniel had just brushed it off, saying everything was fine. "Everything's fine, Jack," Daniel had said with a forced smile. "Don't worry about it." He'd always worried about Daniel ever since they were kids. Daniel had been like a son to him after their parents passed away. He was his family, and Jack had promised to protect him. Yet here he was, standing at his brother's grave, alone, with nothing but questions. The sound of footsteps broke through his thoughts. Jack didn't need to look to know who it was. Clara. Clara Marlowe was the town's bartender, and while she wasn't someone Jack usually sought out for company, she had been a part of his life in her own way. She had known Daniel too, and lately, Jack had begun to wonder if there was more to Clara than he had first thought. She had a way of keeping her distance, always polite, but never quite opening up to anyone, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Clara knew something about Daniel's death. "Jack?" Her voice was soft but firm, cutting through the silence between them. Jack didn't turn around. "Clara?" he muttered, his voice thick with grief. "You shouldn't be here. This is private." "I know," she replied, "but I wanted to talk to you. She stopped herself, taking a step closer, her boots crunching against the dry earth. "I'm sorry about Daniel. Didn't want sympathy, he wanted answers." Clara hesitated before speaking again. "Jack, I know you're hurting, and I know you're angry. But you need to hear me out. You need to listen." Jack finally turned to face her, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. "What are you talking about?" Clara's eyes flickered nervously, and for a moment Jack saw something in her gaze that he hadn't noticed before. Fear, maybe, or guilt. She took a deep breath. "It wasn't an accident, Jack. Daniel didn't die the way they said he did." Jack's heart skipped a beat. His breath caught in his throat. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara looked away, as if unsure how to continue. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago. But I didn't want to get involved, and now I'm regretting it. Just tell me, Clara. Tell me what you know." Clara stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Daniel got mixed up with the wrong people. Outlaws. They were using him, Jack. They were threatening the ranch, and he didn't know how to get out." Jack's chest tightened. His brother? Mixed up with outlaws? It didn't make sense. "They told him that if he didn't help them, they'd destroy everything you worked for," Clara continued. "But Daniel didn't want to tell you. He was ashamed, Jack. He didn't want to bring shame to your name." Jack's stomach churned. "But that's not what happened. He didn't die because of outlaws."
"Oh, Jack, they killed him."
"It wasn't an accident. They made sure it looked like one, but it was murder." Jack's mind reeled. His legs felt weak beneath him, and for a moment the world seemed to spin. His brother betrayed him? Betrayed everything they had built together? "I'm sorry," Clara said softly, "but you need to know the truth." The silence between them grew heavy, and Jack struggled to keep his emotions in check. Betrayal. It was something that cut deep, something that would change everything. Jack had to figure out who was behind this, and he had to make them pay. He stared at the grave once more. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. The sun had set by the time Jack left the graveyard. The sky above had turned a deep shade of purple, and the air was cooler, but the weight of what Clara had told him still hung over him like a storm cloud. He didn't know what to believe anymore. His brother, mixed up with criminals? It seemed impossible. But Clara wasn't the type to lie. Jack rode his horse back into town, the sound of hooves echoing through the empty streets. He wasn't sure where he was going. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but one thing was certain: he couldn't let this go. He needed answers, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get them. The town was quiet, most of the shops closed for the night. The only light came from the flickering lamps outside the saloon. Jack had always hated this place. The saloon was where the troublemakers came to drink and gamble, where secrets were whispered in the dark. But tonight, it seemed like the only place he could find some answers. He tied his horse to the post and walked inside. The boner of voices and the clink of glass filled the air. Jack's boots scraped against the wooden floor as he made his way to the bar. He wasn't here to drink, not tonight. He was here for something else. Clara was behind the bar, her back turned as she wiped down a glass. When she saw Jack approach, she gave him a small, nervous smile. "You came back," she said, her voice softer than usual. Jack nodded, his jaw clenched. "I need to know more, Clara, about Daniel." About what happened. Clara hesitated, her eyes flickering around the room as if making sure no one was listening. "I told you what I know, Jack, but if you're asking for more, you're going to have to be careful." Jack frowned. "Careful? What do you mean?" She leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's a lot more to this than you realize. There are people in this town who don't want you digging around. People who will stop at nothing to keep their secrets safe." "Who? Who are these people?" "I can't say too much. Not yet. But I can point you in the right direction. You need to talk to Red Sam. He's the one who's been pulling the strings. He's the one behind everything." Jack's blood ran cold at the name. Red Sam was a notorious outlaw, known for his ruthless ways. The mere mention of his name sent a chill through Jack's spine. He had heard stories about the man, stories about his gangs terrorizing towns, stealing cattle, and doing whatever it took to get what they wanted. "Red Sam?" Jack repeated, his voice thick with disbelief. "How does Daniel get involved with him?" Clara sighed, looking over her shoulder to make sure no one was paying attention. "It's a long story. Daniel got in deep, Jack. He thought he could get out, but they don't let you go that easy. Red Sam promised him money, promised him power. But all it did was drag him into a world he couldn't escape." Jack's fists clenched, and his anger boiled over. "So you're telling me Daniel's death wasn't an accident? It was because of Red Sam?" "That's right. Daniel tried to back out, but they made an example of him. And now, if you're not careful, they'll make an example of you too." Jack felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. His brother had been taken from him, and Jack was going to find out why. He was going to make Red Sam pay for what he had done. "I'm not scared of Red Sam," Jack said, his voice low and determined. "Where can I find him?" "You're not listening to me, Jack. Red Sam is dangerous. He has people everywhere. People in the town, people you wouldn't even suspect. If you go after him, you're not just going after him. You're going after everyone he controls." Jack's eyes narrowed. "I don't care. If it means finding out the truth, then I'll go after anyone who stands in my way." Clara looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but you need to be smart about this. Don't go barging into Red Sam's camp. He'll kill you before you even get close. I'll give you a name. Someone who might be able to help." Jack's curiosity piqued. "Who?" "His name's Jake, and he's been hunting Red Sam for years. He's the only one who knows how to get close to him without getting killed, but you'll have to earn his trust. He doesn't just help anyone." Jack didn't hesitate. "Where can I find him?" "He's in the hills to the west of town. You'll find him in a small cabin near the old mine. But remember, Jack, this is your last warning. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. You'll be in this fight whether you want to be or not." Jack's mind was made up. He nodded, standing up straight. "I'm not afraid. I'll find Jake. I'll find Red Sam. And I'll get justice for Daniel." Clara watched him for a moment, then reached under the bar and pulled out a small map. She slid it toward him, her fingers brushing against his. "Be careful," she said softly, "and don't trust anyone." Jack grabbed the map and folded it into his pocket. With one last look at Clara, he turned and walked out of the saloon, his boots hitting the dirt with a steady rhythm. He had a plan now. He had a direction. And he wasn't going to stop until he got the answers he was searching for. The night air was cooler as Jack made his way toward the hills. The town had fallen silent, but in the distance he could hear the wind rustling through the trees. He wasn't sure what awaited him in the hills, but one thing was for sure: he was going to face whatever came his way. As Jack climbed higher into the hills, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if guiding his path. The journey ahead would be difficult, but Jack was ready. He had lost too much to turn back now. The truth was out there, and Jack Tanner was going to find it, no matter the cost. The hills stretched ahead, dark and quiet beneath the moonlit sky. Jack Tanner rode his horse through the rough terrain, the path winding through narrow trails between jagged rocks and tall pines. The air was cool, the scent of pine needles sharp in his nostrils, but all Jack could think about was the map Clara had given him. It led him to a cabin, a small, weathered building tucked away deep in the hills, far from the watchful eyes of the town. He had been riding for hours, the steady rhythm of his horse's hooves calming his restless mind. The anger that had once burned hot in his chest had cooled, replaced by a heavy weight of determination. He was on a mission now. He had to find Jake, and Jake was the key to uncovering the truth behind Daniel's death. Jack's thoughts drifted back to the conversation with Clara. She had been right about one thing. Red Sam was dangerous. The outlaw was ruthless, a man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. And if Red Sam had killed Daniel, then Jack knew he couldn't let him get away with it, not without a fight. The cabin came into view just as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon. Jack's heart quickened as he rode closer. The place was small, but it looked sturdy enough. There was a thin trail of smoke rising from the chimney, and Jack could see a figure moving around inside. He dismounted and tied his horse to a nearby tree before walking cautiously toward the cabin. He knocked on the door, his boots crunching on the dry ground beneath his feet. The sound of footsteps approached from the inside, and the door creaked open. A man stood in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, his face rugged and weathered from years of hard living. He was older than Jack, but there was a sharpness in his eyes that suggested he had seen more than his fair share of danger. "You Jack Tanner?" the man asked, his voice low and gravelly. Jack nodded. "I'm here to talk to Jake." The man gave a grunt, stepping aside to let Jack in. "Come on in. I figured someone like you would come sooner or later. You've got that look about you." Jack stepped inside, his eyes scanning the small cabin. It was sparsely furnished, with a wood stove in the corner, a table in the center of the room, and a few chairs scattered about. The air inside was warm, a welcome change from the chill outside. "Sit down," Jake said, motioning to the chair at the table. "You want something to drink?" "No, I'm good," Jack replied, sitting down. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the man who might have the answers he'd been searching for. Jake sat across from him, leaning back in his chair. He studied Jack for a long moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Clara said you were looking for answers. About your brother, Daniel. You know about Daniel?" "I know a lot about Daniel," Jake replied, his tone measured. "He wasn't just some kid from town. He was involved in things he shouldn't have been. You're asking the right questions, Jack, but be careful. You don't know what you're getting into." Jack leaned forward, his eyes hard. "I don't care about the danger. I just want to know the truth." "Clara said you could help me." Jake paused before speaking again, his fingers drumming on the table. "All right, I'll tell you what I know. But first, you need to understand something. Red Sam isn't just an outlaw. He's got a whole network of people working for him, people who don't care about right or wrong. They care about power and money, and they'll do anything to get it. Your brother got caught up in that world, and he paid the price for it." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "So you're saying Daniel was working for Red Sam?" Jake nodded slowly. At first, Daniel was just helping him out with a few jobs here and there, nothing too serious. But Red Sam's the type of man who doesn't let go once you're in. Daniel thought he could get out, but once you're tied to him, it's like a noose around your neck. Jack felt his stomach tighten. What do you mean he thought he could get out? Daniel tried to pull away. Jake said, his voice quieter now. He realized too late that he couldn't. He got in over his head. Red Sam made promises of money, of power, and of protection. But when Daniel tried to back out, Red Sam didn't take kindly to it. He had to make an example of him. Jack's heart sank. He had always trusted Daniel, believed in him. But now, everything he knew felt like a lie. His brother had been involved with people like Red Sam, and Jack had never known. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him. Could he have done something to save Daniel? Could he have stopped him before it was too late? Jake's voice cut through his thoughts. Listen, Jack, I'm telling you this because I've been hunting Red Sam for years. I've seen what he does to people who try to cross him. He's not just a criminal.
He's a monster. And if you go after him, you'd better be prepared to fight for your life.
Jack nodded, his jaw set. I don't care about the danger. Red Sam took my brother from me, and I'm going to make him pay. Jake studied Jack for a moment and sighed. All right, I'll help you. But understand this. Red Sam doesn't play by the rules. You want him, you'll have to be smarter than he is. He's got eyes everywhere. Jack's eyes narrowed. I don't care if he's got an army. I'll fight him alone if I have to. Jake stood up, walking over to a small chest in the corner of the cabin. He pulled out a rifle and handed it to Jack. You're going to need this, and I'll help you get closer to Red Sam's camp. But you'll have to be careful. It's not going to be easy. Jack took the rifle, feeling its weight in his hands. I'm ready. Jake gave him a hard look. You'd better be. One last thing, Jack. Red Sam doesn't just kill people. He destroys them. He'll take everything from you if you let him.
Jack didn't respond. He didn't need to.
He knew what he had to do. He walked out of the cabin and back toward his horse. The morning sun was rising higher in the sky, casting long shadows over the hills. Jack mounted his horse, his mind clear now. He had no more doubts. The path ahead was dangerous, but Jack was no stranger to danger. He had a new purpose now, one that would drive him forward until Red Sam was nothing but a memory. The truth was within reach, and Jack Tanner was going to get it, no matter the cost. The wind picked up as Jack rode out of the hills, the early morning light casting long shadows over the land. His heart was steady now, and his resolve was stronger than ever. He had a purpose, a goal. Red Sam had taken his brother, and Jack would make sure that the outlaw would pay for it. He had been searching for answers, and now he had them. There was no turning back. Jake had given him the tools he needed, the rifle, some supplies, and most importantly, the knowledge of where Red Sam's camp was. Jack's plan was simple. Sneak in, find Red Sam, and bring him to justice. If that meant a fight, then Jack was ready. He had lost too much already to fear a few more battles. As Jack rode toward the location Jake had given him, the terrain grew rougher. The hills and valleys became more treacherous, but Jack's instincts guided him. The silence of the land felt heavy, the only sound being the crunch of his horse's hooves on the dry ground. Jack's thoughts were sharp, focused. There was no room for doubt. He was doing what he had to do. When he reached the outskirts of Red Sam's camp, Jack dismounted and tied his horse to a tree, making sure it was hidden from view. He crept through the brush, moving as silently as he could. His senses were on high alert, his eyes scanning every shadow, his ears listening for any sound that could signal danger. The camp was up ahead, nestled in a small valley, hidden from the main road. Jack could see a few figures moving around the fire, their voices low and indistinct. He knew this was it, the moment he had been preparing for. The camp was small, but Jack knew Red Sam's influence was far-reaching. If he was going to confront him, he had to be smart about it. He waited until the guards moved away from the fire before making his move. Moving quickly, Jack slipped into the camp, blending into the shadows. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he pushed the fear aside. He had been through worse. This time, he was ready. He reached a small wooden shack at the center of the camp and peeked through the cracks in the walls. Inside, he could see Red Sam sitting at a table, his back to the door. The man looked just as Jack had imagined him, tall with a scarred face and cold eyes that betrayed nothing. He was surrounded by a few of his men, all sitting at the table with weapons close by. Jack's fingers tightened around the rifle. This was the moment. Jack didn't have time to waste. He knew Red Sam had a reputation for being ruthless, and he couldn't afford to hesitate. He slowly opened the door and stepped inside, rifle aimed directly at the outlaw. Red Sam turned his head slowly, his cold eyes locking onto Jack's. For a moment, neither of them moved. The silence in the room felt thick, oppressive. Jack could hear the wind whistling through the cracks in the shack, but it felt like the entire world had stopped for that moment. "I've been expecting you, Tanner," Red Sam said, his voice low and menacing. "You're a brave man to come here, but you're also a fool." Jack's grip tightened on the rifle, his anger flaring. I'm not here to talk, Sam. I'm here for justice. Red Sam's lips curled into a smirk. Justice? You think you can just waltz in here and take me down? You don't know who you're dealing with. I know exactly who you are, Jack shot back, his voice steady. You're a coward who hides behind his men. You killed my brother, and I'm going to make you pay for it. The room grew tense. The men around the table looking from Jack to Red Sam, waiting for the order. Jack knew they would act if given the chance, but he wasn't afraid. He had come too far to back down now. Red Sam stood slowly, his hands raised in mock surrender. You think you're going to be the one to end me? You think you can just take me out like some outlaw in a story? I don't care what you think, Jack said, stepping forward, his rifle aimed firmly at Sam's chest. You're nothing but a killer, and you're going to pay for what you did to my family. For a long moment, Red Sam didn't say anything. His eyes flickered with something. Was it fear? Or perhaps it was just the cold calculation that Jack had seen in so many criminals over the years. Finally, Red Sam spoke. You think you can just take over everything I've built? You think you can stop me? You're too late, Tanner. The world's changed. People like me don't go down easy. Jack's hand shook, but his aim didn't waver. Then I'll be the one to change that. The tension in the air was unbearable. Jack could feel his heart racing, his breath coming in sharp bursts. He had come this far, and now it was up to him to finish what he started. Red Sam had destroyed his family, taken everything that mattered, and Jack couldn't let that slide. Not this time. Suddenly, the crack of a rifle echoed in the room. Jack's body jerked forward as the bullet narrowly missed him, embedding itself in the wall behind him. The other men in the room scrambled to grab their weapons, but Jack was quicker. With a single movement, he fired his rifle, knocking one of Red Sam's men to the ground. The fight that followed was fast and brutal. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked and fired, moving with the confidence of a man who had nothing left to lose. The men around Red Sam fell one by one, their bodies hitting the ground with sickening thuds. When the room was finally still, Jack's eyes locked onto Red Sam, who was backed into a corner, his hands raised in defeat. It's over, Jack said, his voice cold. Red Sam's eyes flickered with something. Fear, anger, maybe even regret, but it was too late. Jack had come for him, and he wasn't leaving until justice was served. As the authorities arrived and took Red Sam into custody, Jack stood outside the shack, the wind blowing through his hair. The storm inside him had finally passed. He had avenged his brother's death, and now, for the first time in a long while, Jack Tanner could breathe easy. The road ahead wasn't clear, and Jack knew it wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hope. He had a chance to rebuild, to move forward. His brother was gone, but Jack wasn't going to let that define him. He had lost so much, but he had also gained something new, a future. And with that future, Jack Tanner was ready to face whatever came next.